Hello, YouTube pipers. I'm going to open this window. You may be hearing a noise from the back. The neighbor's doing something with some kind of machine. It's kind of loud. I don't know what it is. So I apologize right off the bat if that noise is irritating. It's a Sunday. And woke up to rain hitting the house. Not this morning, yesterday morning. And we walked, I took Hunter outside and it was just sprinkling at the time. Came back in. And then it hit full force. I mean, the wind, it was close to hurricane winds. It was heavy winds, heavy rain, and the tide was coming in. It was 1 hour away from high tide. So I had to go outside and move my garbage cans, and I went over to the neighbors and moved theirs because they weren't home. Because when the water rises to a certain amount, it lifts those and they just float away. So I moved those. And the water rose to at least 6 inches outside. And of course, being nervous about flooding, I prayed again, and the rain slowed down and stopped. I checked the weather report and it said that it was heavy rain everywhere, but here it was just a drizzle. And say what you will, but I believe in prayer. Because the tide was still coming in, but the rain had stopped. Thank the good Lord. And it rose up, like I say, about 6 inches and then began to dissipate and the wind began to blow. So no flooding here. I do have a yard that's a swamp. And poor Hunter has to walk out in that. I've got boots, but he doesn't. So anyway, I find when I get a little lonely that I enjoy getting on here and talking to the glass and knowing that somebody somewhere sometime will sit there and light up a pipe with me. So I feel like I'm in good company. It's now, the 10th of March. We've gone into daylight savings time again, and I just don't understand the logic behind that anymore. I mean, it may have been good for a purpose way back when, but it's not necessary anymore. And it just irritates me every twice a year. I have to fiddle with those clocks and get used to the time. I just hate it. I don't think there's any right. And every year, politicians say we're going to end this, and it never happens. I don't know why we ever listen to politicians, because they say things and they never keep their word. I remember my dad always saying, we need somebody to get into that office that's not a politician. And by George, President Trump got in there, he was not a politician. he even said, I don't want to be paid for this, and for just said no to a salary. What president has ever done that? And what president has ever lost his financial status? I mean, he went in with so many millions here, and when he went out, he had dropped down so many millions. And every other president has made a fortune in there. They go in at this amount and they come out and they're worth 2 and 3 times and sometimes 4 times what they were worth before they went into office. So here we had a man who was not a politician, something so many people I remember saying in the past, if we could just get somebody in there who's not a politician, then we could straighten some of this stuff out and people would listen to us again. We had that. And I don't understand why there are so many people who hate him. I mean, he's not perfect, but who is? I just don't understand it. It just blows me away. There's like a wall of hatred there, and they refuse to look beyond that wall. And they welcome somebody like Biden coming back into office. It blows me away. Sorry, I didn't mean to get off on a rant, but I guess daylight savings time brings everything to the surface with me. I hate daylight savings time. I don't know anybody that likes daylight savings time. Anyway, we had a leap year this year, which means February had 29 days in it. And normally it's 28. My birthday is on the 14th, and 2 girls that I used to know back in grammar school, their birthday was on the 28th. We were good friends back through grammar school. Once we got into high school, I don't know what happened to them. I just found out that one of them passed away. And I was so sorry to hear that, because I was hoping that one day we might meet up again just to say hey and look back on, those bright days of childhood where you look for 4-leaf clovers and walk around in the rain with your shoes off and jump into mud puddles, just talk about silly stuff. I remember in 2nd grade, I had just gotten home to my grandmother's house because I lived about 2 doors down from them. And I was getting ready to do my homework because that was the rule in my house. You do your homework, then you go play. So I had gotten my workbook out to do that, and the phone rang. 2 rings. Now, if you had 1 ring, it was the neighbor across the street. 2 rings was my grandmother's phone. 3 rings was the neighbor right next door. 3-party line. This was something we dealt with back in the day when we had the rotary dial. Well, I was the only one there. Clyde wasn't home. My grandmother wasn't home. She was at work. My granddad was working somewhere. So I was the only one there. Phone rang. I was told when it rang twice, if nobody was there, to answer it and be very polite. So I picked it up and I said, Parnell residence, may I help you? And it was one of the girls. It was Jan and Jill. It was Jan who was calling and said, you want to come down and study with us? Because we've got this place. It's in the sun. It's really nice. You'll like it. I said, okay. And I hung up and I said, I'll be right down. So I started meandering on down the street. And there's a ditch with tadpoles, and lilies growing up, and I stood there and looked at those for a while, and then I kept wandering on down, just moseying. I wasn't walking very fast. And they were standing in the yard just, tapping their foot and hands on the hips saying, "Will you hurry up?" And I said, "I'm coming, I'm coming." So I got there and they said, "Come on." So I had my satchel on my back. And we went over there was this chicken coop, little square chicken coop with tar paper over the top, with a wire fence around it, one tree and weeds beside the tree, and there was a ladder that went up to the top of the chicken coop. There weren't any chickens there. The chickens had, I don't know if they had died out or they had eaten them all. Because that's what we did. My grandmother had chickens too, and it was always fun whenever to a child, it was always fun when she was going to have chicken, because she would walk out there, grab a chicken by the neck, sling it around her neck and break its neck, and drop it to the ground, and it would go running all around the yard, because I don't know, there's something about how their nerves are wired that they would still run like crazy after they were dead. Sometimes she'd take an axe to them and chop off their heads, and the same thing would happen when it fell to the side. It would take off running, blood spurting out of its neck, head down on the chopping block. To a kid, that was just, it was funny. It's not so funny now, I guess, because the poor critter, but still, fried chicken was good, and they were her chickens. And that's what farmers did, and she had been a farmer all her life, so. Nowadays, we just go to the freezer section of the supermarket and pick up packaged chicken. That's how they kill them. I mean, to have that packaged chicken, you got to kill a chicken. Anyway, I digress. So anyway, there were no chickens in this coop because they were all gone. Excuse me, there were weeds growing up. And Jan and Jill climbed up on the ladder and got up on the roof of the chicken coop. And I climbed up on the ladder, and as I was beginning to sit down, there was a bumblebee flying around me, and I was just, because didn't want to get stung. They said, "If you leave that bee alone, it won't bother you." I said, "I don't care, I just don't want to be stung." They said, "It's not going to sting you if you leave it alone." I said, "I remember out there by that fig tree at my grandmama's when I got stung." And Jill said, "You told us that was a yellow jacket that stung you there." I said, "Yellow jackets, bumblebees, they're all just flying stingers. I don't want anything to do with any of them." She said, "Oh, settle down and let's get to work here, because Mama said we got to get finished with this, and you've already dawdled around, boys. Jeepers, boys. They're so dumb." So, unbeknownst to me at the time, I acquiesced, which meant I was getting in tune for married life way down the road. Well, that Paladin Piper thing, I smoked the whole thing down. It never stays lit when I'm yakking. Anyway, they said, "You got your lessons?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, get your workbook." I said, "My workbook?" She said, "Yeah, your workbook. We have to fill it out." I said, "I don't have my workbook. It's on the couch at my grandmama's." They said, "Well, you go get it, because we got to get this done, doggone it." So I climbed down the ladder, ran to my grandmother's, picked up the workbook, ran back to the house, climbed up the ladder, sat down. Another bee was buzzing around, and she said, "Will you quit playing with that bee and get to work?" Later in life, I would say, "Yes, dear," but at this particular time, I said, "Okay." Jan and Jill, I love those two girls. So, got out the workbook. She said, "Turn to page 10." So I turned to page 10. I said, "What is this?" She said, "What do you mean, what is this?" I said, "What are we doing? What are you doing here?" And she said, "We're studying cursive. We're learning cursive." I said, "Cursive? What's cursive?" She said, "Don't you ever pay attention in school?" I said, "I don't remember her talking about this." She said, "Boys." Well, she said, "Do you know how to do cursive?" I said, "Well, tell me what it is, and I'll tell you if I know how to do it or not." She said, "Instead of writing your letters individually in block form like we do, printing, we connect them." I said, "Yeah, I know how to do that." She said, "Well, show me." So, on the inside cover of the notebook, I wrote down a letter, drew a line, wrote down another letter, drew a line, wrote down another letter, drew a line. I said, "That's what you're talking about, where the letters are connected?" "Boys," she said, "you have not been paying attention in class at all. Why do you even go?" She was getting perturbed with me. Jill got perturbed with me a lot. So I said, "Well, go ahead and show me what you're talking about if that isn't how you do it." So we had these lines in the notebook, 3 lines, blue lines, with the letters in blue. You just kind of went along with what the letters were and you traced that blue line. She said, "This is how you do it." She traced the blue line and did the cursive writing. I said, "Yeah, I can do that. That's like drawing, isn't it?" And she said, "Yeah, kind of." So I did it. And I said, "Ah, a loop here, and a line, and a loop, and another loop, and a line. Yeah, I can do that." She said, "Well, if that's the first time you've done it, that's not bad." And I said, "It's like drawing. It's not really writing." Oh, me. And Jill said, "Boys." Jan just looked at me and smiled. And we sat there under the sun because it was spring and it was getting warmer and the days were growing. And we just sat up on top of that tar papered chicken coop, which was warm to our bottoms, the sun shining down on us, the breeze blowing at us, and that damn bumblebee coming for me. But we spent the rest of that time perfecting our cursive writing. They don't even teach that anymore, from what I understand. And I feel like that's something very important. But that's one of my favorite memories of the twins that lived down 2 houses from my grandma. I think I've told other stories about them too. But enough of that. I don't know. I don't know how I managed to burn the leaf down to ash for 30 minutes. Whereas while I'm sitting here yakking, I have to light it every 20 seconds. Excuse me. I want to thank you for spending some time with me. It's been a while since I've posted anything. Sometimes I don't feel like I have anything to say, and sometimes, like I said, it's kind of gets lonely sometimes, and the loneliness kind of drifts away when I'm talking, imagining somebody along with me smoking away. And I always love thinking of those grammar school days. I think those are some of the best memories because they were so innocent and there was so much learning going on during that time. Whenever you get older, the learning becomes more important than it was back then because it's not quite as easy to pick things up. Plus, your learning is aimed more at what you want to do with your life rather than just picking up the nuances of being alive in grammar school, where a lot of it was just play and socializing. That was probably what was so much fun about it, is so much of it was play and socializing. Well, I've yabbered on for longer than most of you folks are going to sit here and listen. So I'd like to thank you again for stopping by. Lighting up a pipe with me. And listening to me drone on. I appreciate your stopping by. Let me get my thumb over the button here. I just want to say that I'm grateful, and God bless you until the next time. Bye-bye.